This article is found on medicalexpress.com. I'll have a link in the show description if you want to read the full article. It's titled Trauma of Diagnosis Stays with Eye Disease Patients. And then it goes in to say, the way in which a patient is told they have a serious eye disease can impact their psychological health and ability to cope with their condition in the long term, according to new research published in the open access journal BMJ Open. And by the way, this article was published in July of this year. It says a research team interviewed patients across a wide range of ages who had been diagnosed with the eye disease in England over the course of several decades and assessed the psychological impact of the way their diagnosis was communicated. Interviewees had been diagnosed with a variety of conditions, including diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, Stargardt disease, and retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. Sorry, I'm going to do that every time. And the interview showed 4 themes. So 4 themes here. The convoluted process of being diagnosed, the impact of clinicians' words, the search for information, and reflections on what could have been improved. It says, researchers found that patients often vividly remembered the way they were told they had their condition and the manner of the medical professional that delivered the news. This impacted on how they saw their vision loss and themselves, as well as their interactions with other people. One patient described the news as like being hit with a brick. Another patient said it was very brief and very clinical. They literally told me that I had this, and in time was slowly going blind. There was no cure. Some had waited months or years for diagnosis from initially being aware of a problem, creating a sense of frustration and anxiety. One younger patient said, you're told something is wrong. You're going to have to make an appointment in 14 weeks to have this test done. You need to wait 5 or 6 months for the results. 5 or 6 months is a long time when you're waking up every day worried and you're not sleeping well, and it's affecting relationships with other people and potentially your job. Some patients felt the need to go on the internet to find out more, coming across misinformation and scare stories online, increasing their anxiety about their condition. Yeah. I'm sure this article's already resonating with me. I was diagnosed when I was 12, which is essentially I was a little kid. So it didn't really sink in with me the way it's probably sinking in with these people, who are adults, getting told, they're going blind. It's a very big deal. It says Dr. Jolly, associate professor at Angela Ruskin University's Vision and Eye Research Institute, said being given a diagnosis of eye disease can be unexpected and devastating. That's true. The moment of diagnosis is emotionally charged, and interactions with clinicians can have a lasting impact on how a patient comes to terms with their visual impairment. If patients don't feel they have received enough information, this can lead them to feeling lost and often searching for the details from less reliable sources. This is one of the first studies to examine how the communication of a diagnosis impacts psychologically on a patient in the long term. And we found that the words and demeanor of the medical professionals affected a patient's ability to come to terms with their condition. It says clinicians should carefully consider how to communicate a diagnosis to patients, how and when they offer information about diagnosis or prognosis. Yeah. It does matter how we're told. It does matter how we feel in these doctors' offices. That's why I hate going to a retinal specialist. Like in North Carolina, and I've been a few times here in New York. I made vlogs about it if you want to watch it. You go in, you feel like a lab rat. Let's be real. You go in, they're doing field vision tests, they're doing ERGs, they're taking photography of your eyes with very, very bright lights going in your eyes. And then they're looking at your retina and being like, ooh, this looks different. Like I remember in North Carolina, I would go to the Kittner Eye Center, and it was part of a university. So it had basically people in grad school kind of shadowing, my retinal specialist. So they were, using my time with the doctor as like almost their research. So the doctor would be like, check this out. And they would like show them images of my eyes. And it's like, since RP is rare, these people in grad school were kind of like, honestly, they were kind of like excited to see what the inside of my eyes looked like, which I get. I totally get why they would be excited about that, but doesn't mean I'm excited about it. I don't like feeling like a lab rat. I don't like being, the anomaly that causes excitement because it's rare. But yeah, it matters. It matters how doctors makes us feel. I think it matters more than they know. I think doctors care. I just think that they're so busy that they don't have the time and energy to lay it out there the way they should. Something's wrong with it. The process. And, when you're told, like I said, I was told when I was 12 and my mom cried because she was in the room with me. My mom has RP and she's legally blind from it. So she was fully aware of what was ahead of me. And she felt really, really guilty. And I can't even remember being told, honestly. Maybe I blocked it out. But I remember talking to my dad and he was trying to get a feel for how I thought about it. And I remember thinking like, well, my mom still sees, because my mom's not blind, where she doesn't see anything. So I said, I'll still be able to see, and that's what I thought as a kid, I'll still be able to see. I'll be fine. Mom can still see a little bit. But what I didn't think about is how it's going to impact my career, my ability to drive, and how it's just going to affect daily life for me, and how it's something that I'm going to have to live with that other people are not living with. And that's what creeps in over time. You're your own worst enemy, processing this information. As you go about your day, you're in the shower, you're thinking about it sometimes. You're at work, you're thinking about it. You're going to be hard on yourself. So wouldn't it be helpful if you had a soft intro into it? Like a doctor was like, you have retinitis pigmentosa. It's a rare disease which causes blindness, but there's lots of great resources out there. And plenty of people have great lives who have RP. There's lots of different ways you can adapt to it. And there's great people in the community that you can connect with. There's a lot you can do to reclaim control of your life. And, I feel like that's kind of the message we want to hear. But sometimes we're just told very coldly we have something. And when we're diagnosed with something, and then we go home to Dr. Google, as my last guest, Andy Ock, says. And then you start to, read about going blind. So then your anxiety skyrockets. And, it's a weird scenario, It's a lot of anxiety comes with vision loss, whether it's, driving, when to not drive, like I talked about in that article, traveling, if you use a guide dog, is everything figured out beforehand? If you're a cane user, are you going to be able to find your way out the airport? But there's no one out there who isn't afraid of vision loss or was afraid of vision loss at one point in their life. If you're scared out there, it's okay. I'm terrified of losing, my vision, but I'm doing the work that I feel needed to feel more comfortable with losing vision by doing this podcast, talking to my guests, reading these articles, studying it, addressing it head on, and building a community of friends who, are dealing with what I'm going to deal with.